We are coming to the close of the Easter season, and we have been hearing readings continually from the Acts of the Apostles, both on Sundays and on weekdays. The Acts of the Apostles arises from St. Luke's effort to tell the story and describe the missionary effort of the early Christian church, focused around two foci missionaries, St. Peter and St. Paul. St. Peter in the first half, and St. Paul mostly in the second half. Both of these powerful Christian missionary evangelists are martyred in Rome by the Emperor Nero. Donald Jackson and Aidan Hart portray St. Paul in classic Byzantine style, surrounded by churches of different architectural style from across the centuries. St. Paul, as you know from reading his letters and self-reflections, is deeply mystical, with a profound, life-changing revelation of the risen Christ. There is a ship in the background, right behind Paul's lower body, that symbolizes his continual missionary journeying across the entire Mediterranean Sea. St. Paul was tireless, resilient, stubborn, determined to spend himself and his life breath for the sake of the gospel. Behind him is the symbolic Christian church across the centuries, but in architectural form, Romanesque, Gothic, and contemporary architecture. Quite literally, the gospel across the world and across the centuries. Paul is at the center, holding the Basilica of St. Peter, that center of the Roman Catholic Church. In his hands, the dome and the nave. It is difficult to think about the Christian message and its future and the way it would have moved across the centuries without St. Paul. No question, he was a brilliant theologian who understood the Jewish heritage inside and out. It was part of his DNA. He was also, therefore, able to unite the message for both Jews and Gentiles and speak to both. He developed a practical, ethical framework for the Christian community as it lived the gospel in his time. This illumination pays tribute to our gratitude to this amazing apostle and to God for calling him forth. The illumination also challenges us to do our part and to do for our time what Paul did for his time. We see our beloved planet Earth in a very different way than Paul and his generation of Christians would have, because of the amazing contributions of the Hubble telescope and astrophysics and a host of other discoveries. We understand ourselves in the universe in a very different way. Secondly, in that classic expression that Paul gave to the impact of the gospel and the belief in Jesus as Redeemer, there is neither male nor female, no slave or free, neither Jew nor Greek. How do we understand, if you will, this loss of distinction based on those kinds of categories in our own time? How do we ourselves understand the freedom of the Christian and the freedom of our church to think and theologize and pray, if you will, out into a new future? We need to be communities that are rooted in the risen Christ. Perhaps more than any other time than right now, we need a church that lives, breathes, and acts on the basis of a practical charity toward the planet and toward each other.